Tonight's story is The Emperor's New Clothes by Hans Christian Andersen. Many years ago there lived an emperor so tremendously fond of fine new clothes that he spent all his money on rigging himself out. He cared nothing for soldiers or for going to the theater or for driving in the country unless it was to show off his new clothes. He had a robe for every hour of the day, and just as we say of a king that he is in council, so they would say of him, the emperor's in the wardrobe. In the big city where he lived, it was always lively, and every day there were many visitors. One day 2 impostors came. They passed themselves off as weavers, and said they could weave the loveliest cloth imaginable. Not only were the colors and patterns so very beautiful, but clothes made from the material had the magic power of being invisible to anyone not fit for his post, or hopelessly stupid. These clothes sound rather good, thought the emperor. By wearing them, I could find out which of my people were unfit for their posts, and should be able to tell the clever ones from the stupid. Yes, that cloth must be woven for me at once. And he paid the impostors a large sum of money in advance so that they could start work. Sure enough, they set up 2 looms and pretended to be working, though there wasn't a thing on the looms. They coolly demanded the finest silk and the richest gold thread, and stuffing this into their bags, they worked away at the empty looms till well into the night. I wonder how far they've got with that material, thought the emperor. But he had rather a queer feeling inside him when he thought that anyone stupid or unfit for his post wouldn't be able to see it. Of course, he saw no reason to be afraid himself. Still, he thought, he would send somebody else first, just to see how things stood. The whole city had heard about the magic power of the material, and everybody was eager to see how hopeless or stupid his neighbor was. I'll send my honest old minister to the weavers, thought the emperor. He's the best person to see what the cloth looks like, for he's a man of sense, and nobody attends to his job better than he does. So off went the worthy old minister to the room where the 2 impostors sat working at the empty looms. Good gracious, thought the old minister, opening his eyes wide. I can't see a thing. But he didn't say so. The 2 impostors said would he please come a little nearer, and didn't he think it had a beautiful pattern and lovely colors. They then pointed to the empty loom, and the poor old minister opened his eyes wider than ever. But he couldn't see anything, for there was nothing to see. Goodness me, he thought. Does that mean I'm stupid? I never thought I was, and nobody must ever know it. Surely I can't be unfit for my post. No, it would never do for me to let on that I can't see the cloth. Well, have you nothing to say about it? Said the one who was weaving. Oh, it's lovely. Simply delicious, said the old minister, peering through his spectacles. This pattern and these colors. I shall tell the emperor I am indeed delighted with it. We are pleased to hear it, said the 2 weavers, and they named the colors and singular pattern. The old minister listened carefully so as to be able to repeat the names when he got back to the emperor, which he did. The impostors now asked for more money, and more silk, and gold thread, saying they wanted it for weaving. It all went into their own pockets. Not a thread was put on the loom. And they went on weaving at the empty loom as before. Soon the emperor sent another trusted official to see how the weaving was getting on, and if the cloth would soon be ready. The same thing happened to him as to the minister. He looked and looked, but as there was nothing there but the empty looms, he couldn't see anything. There, isn't it a beautiful piece of cloth? Said the 2 impostors, pointing out the lovely pattern which wasn't there. I'm not stupid, thought the man, so it must be because I'm not fit for my post. That's funny, but I must take good care not to show it. And so he praised the material he couldn't see, and assured them how delighted he was with the pretty colors and the lovely pattern. Yes, it's simply delicious, he told the emperor. The whole town was talking about the splendid material. Now the emperor thought he would see it for himself, while it was still on the loom. With a large body of chosen men among them, and 2 worthy old officials who had been there already, he went to where the 2 wily impostors were now weaving for all they were worth, but without a thread or a stitch on the loom. "Isn't it simply superb?" said the 2 worthy officials. "See what a pattern, your majesty, and what colors!" And they pointed to the empty loom, thinking that the others could see the material. "What on earth?" thought the emperor. "I don't see a thing. Why, this is terrible. Am I stupid? Am I unfit to be emperor? This is the most dreadful thing that could have befallen me." "Oh, it's beautiful," said the emperor. "It has my most gracious approval." And he nodded with satisfaction as he looked at the empty loom. He wasn't going to say he couldn't see anything. All the courtiers who were with him looked and looked, but with as little result as all the rest, though, like the emperor, they said, "Oh, it's very beautiful," and they advised him to try out some clothes made from this splendid new material in the grand procession that was shortly to take place. "It's superb, ravishing, magnificent," they all declared. They were one and all most thoroughly delighted with it. The emperor gave each of the impostors a medal to pin on his coat, and the title of Lord High Weaver. Before the morning of the procession, the impostors sat up all night with over 16 candles burning. People could see they were busy finishing the emperor's new clothes. They pretended to take the cloth off the loom. They clipped at the air with their great scissors. They sewed with needles that weren't threaded. And then at last they said, "There! Now the clothes are ready." The emperor and his chief gentleman in waiting went there in person, and each of the weavers raised his arm as though holding something and said, "Here you have the breeches. Here's the coat. Here's the cloak." And so they went on. "They're as light as gossamer. You wouldn't think that you had anything on. That's the beauty of them." "Yes, indeed," said all the gentlemen in waiting, but they couldn't see anything, for there wasn't anything there. "If it would graciously please your imperial majesty to take off your clothes," said the impostors, "we will help you on with the new ones, here, in front of the mirror." The emperor took off his clothes, and the impostors pretended to help him on with each of the new garments they were supposed to have made. Then they put their hands round his waist as if they were fastening something around. That was the train. And the emperor turned and twisted in front of the mirror. "How becoming they are! What a beautiful fit!" They all of them cried. "What a pattern! What colors! What sumptuous robes they are!" "The canopy to be carried over your majesty in the procession is waiting outside," said the master of ceremonies. "Very well, I'm ready," said the emperor. "Isn't it a good fit?" And he turned round once more in front of the mirror, pretending to be having a really good look at his finery. The chamberlains who were to bear the train fumbled about the floor as if they were picking the train up, and they walked along holding their hands in the air, not daring to let on that they couldn't see anything. So off marched the emperor in the procession under the beautiful canopy, and everybody in the street and at the windows cried, "Aren't the emperor's new clothes wonderful? What a lovely train he has to his robe! What a splendid fit!" Nobody would let on that he couldn't see anything, because then he would have been unfit for his job, or very stupid. Never had the emperor's clothes been such a success. "But he hasn't got anything on!" cried a little child. "Dear me! Listen to what the pretty innocent says!" cried its father. And it was whispered from man to man what the child had said. "He hasn't got anything on," says a little child. "He hasn't got anything on." "Why, but he hasn't got anything on," they all shouted at last, and the emperor whinnied, for he felt they were right. But he thought to himself, I must go through with the procession now, and he drew himself up more proudly than ever, while the chamberlains walked behind him, bearing the train that wasn't there. The end. That was the story of the Emperor's New Clothes. Good night, everybody.